The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. Tonight my guest is an award-winning writer, producer, director who's not only an accomplished filmmaker, but also a published novelist and co-founder and creative director of Ariel Hawai'i, an aerial circus performing arts company. So we're honored to have her with us tonight. So please welcome Zoe Eisenberg to the show. Welcome to the show, Zoe.
Hey, Dave. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. And, I first want to get into to the writings. I know it all starts with the written words. I know you're a writer and you're also a published novelist, and you have something from Harper Collins called Significant Others that came out in February 2024. So talk about your writing endeavors, because I know this was your debut novel, and I know you have others in the works. So let's talk about that. So talk about that book, Significant Others. Where did that start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, writing in general for me is kind of my first creative love. It's what I studied in school, and it's what I've been doing, for all of my adult life, both professionally and not professionally. So that's kind of what I've always got going. Novel writing it's hard, and you get better at it slowly. So I just had my first novel published this year, like you mentioned, but it's actually the third one that I've finished. So I've been at that for quite some time.
Well, like I told you before we started recording, I did order my copy today, and can't wait to get that. And a very highly rated book. And, I know you're a fiction writer. So where do you get these ideas? Are the ideas something that you come across in your daily life, or is it just something that comes upon you? And because I know sometimes writers will dream something and they'll write it down when they wake up just so they don't forget it. How do you come up with these ideas?
Yeah, it's different project by project, but usually it starts with some kind of question, like what would have happened if I did this differently, or what would have happened if things had turned out like this. And so usually I get kind of stuck on a question and sort of a little bit obsessed with it. So it's the things that I'm really obsessively focused on that end up coming out into a completed work. So for Significant Others, I was thinking a lot about friendship in my life as an adult. For Chaperone, my film that we're going to get to in a little bit, that was inspired by an inciting incident that I had with a teenager at a gym. So it really just, everything starts somewhere, and I get kind of stuck on asking myself questions about it.
Well, let's talk about Chaperone, the movie you just spoke about, out in 2024. You were the writer and director, and it won jury award at the Slamdance Film Festival, and also a grand jury prize. And for those who don't know, I mean, it's from my era. So I graduated in '87 from high school, so I knew about Slamdance in the early '90s. As kind of it was kind of an answer from a lot of the filmmaking community to these big festivals that were out there, kind of, in Colorado and Telluride and Sundance and so forth, where you almost needed to be a studio to get your film screened, had a lot of money and, that type of thing. So these filmmakers got together and started Slamdance, and it's been going strong ever since. And it's one of the most popular film festivals out there, not only in the country, but internationally. And you did so well at this with Chaperone. We talked about the writing of the fiction. So, when you wrote Chaperone, how do you determine whether it's going to be a book or whether it's going to be a film? How do you determine that? Because obviously you could turn it into a book, or vice versa. How tell me about your process on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I usually start by asking myself how internal the story is going to be. So Significant Others is told from the POV of two different women experiencing the same thing in different ways. So I knew it was going to be a lot of what they're thinking and feeling, which is harder, not impossible at all, but harder to show on screen. Whereas Chaperone, is just a much more cinema-friendly story with a lot more happening.
Well, and the film did very, very well, very highly rated as well on IMDb. And, tell the listeners a little bit about the story, because I know you started about somebody you met at the gym, but kind of tell everybody about how that story kind of evolved into the film.
Yeah. So Chaperone is an age gap drama. And when I wrote it, that wasn't even a genre, but in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of really great stories come out, like Licorice Pizza and May December coming out, exploring these more taboo age gap relationships. Chaperone came about when I was, like I mentioned, in the gym. I was just about 30, and a teenage boy came up to me and started talking to me and then asked me out to a house party. And I realized that he thought that I was also in high school. And I was like, I'm old and I'm married, and thank you, friend, but no thank you. And we just laughed, and that was it. But then afterwards, like I talk about obsession with these questions, I kept asking myself, what kind of woman, wouldn't have clarified her age? What kind of woman would have thought going to that party was a good idea? And so Chaperone came from there.
And I know you also had in 2020 Stoke, a film that you co-directed with Phillips Payson, but it won the Hawaii Film Critics Society Best Hawaii Film. I mean, that must have been a very proud moment for you, because I know you live in Hawaii, correct?
Yeah, I live
in Hawaii. That must have been an amazing thing for you, right?
Yeah, and the Hawaii Film Critics Society is great. And every film that I've made 10 films, some of them shorts, a couple features, and they've all been in Hawaii. So it's where I call home.
Well, I mean, you can't get a better backdrop, right? Than Hawaii. I mean, that's amazing. And I've gotten to know quite a few actors and filmmakers from Hawaii, and it's just it's a beautiful backdrop for any kind of film. And but speaking of that, I know, and we were talking about COVID. During the COVID, writers and actors and directors. When you were like all of us locked down, did that provide you a lot of opportunities to write and to get some work out there? Because I know a lot of these just came out, but it was kind of around the COVID time or shortly thereafter. So talk about that. Did that help you kind of focus on your writing?
Yeah, I mean, what helped me focus on my writing was definitely the stimulus payments and the extra payments from unemployment. That was nice, and that gave me a little bit more time and a little bit more breathing room, as I know it did for a lot of creatives. But it also shut down the film industry. So Chaperone was already written, for instance, and we thought we were going to shoot it in 2020. We had a little bit of financing committed, and then no one shot anything in 2020 really, and so the financing fell out. So it was sort of a catch-22, a double-edged sword of more time to write, but productions were not happening. So
talk about being a creative, because I know that it sounds like you had a lot of support from your family and friends and being creative like that. And so I know some people don't have that support. And so talk about that support and the importance of having a support system, being, no matter what you do in the creative arts. I mean, how important is that support?
You mean like emotional support?
Everything as support emotionally, mostly emotional. I think,
Both. I have three parents, actually. All three of my parents love having an artist in the family. So they've always encouraged me to be creative since I was young. My mom actually in high school used to pay me an allowance to write stories because she thought I was good at it and I didn't like doing it yet at the time. And
wow.
So she would try to financially encourage me there. So it's certainly nice to have a family who never pressured me to become a lawyer or a doctor.
Exactly. I hear you there. As far as, when you write, because I'm really interested in the writing piece of it, because that's something that I wish I could do. And I'm not real good at. So when you write, when you have the idea and you start writing it down, how do things evolve? I mean, how do you structure, your writing, your ideas? How do you put it down? And I mean, do you go back to it several times? Talk about your process as a writer. I mean, because I would imagine that you look at something and then you say, you know what? I don't know if this will work on screen. Let me go back again and rework something. Do you do that a lot, or do you collaborate with others?
I collaborate sometimes with screenwriting. I've never collaborated with fiction. Like you said, my first directorial debut was a collaboration with my husband, Phillips. And so that was a collaboration. But in terms of fiction, that's just me alone in a room. I do outline really heavily, which is something that I didn't used to do with fiction. And like I said, I've written I finished 3 novels, and the third one is the first one published. And I really think, of course, that's because, I'm progressing and I'm getting better. But part of that actually, I think, is teaching myself how to become a screenwriter, which I did. I've started that in 2012. So as I started to learn how to do that, I didn't go to school for screenwriting, went to school for creative writing, but was focused on fiction, focused on prose. And I wasn't necessarily the most structured writer, and I didn't work from an outline. And I think a lot of my earlier fiction was like a mood piece and maybe conveyed a feeling, but it didn't move quickly, and it was certainly missing, an exciting plot line. And through teaching myself the structure of screenwriting, which, as you know, an audience is expecting to get a certain structure when they're watching a film. The best films hide their structures quite well, but we're still receiving them. So as I kind of learned slowly over the years how to hit those structure points, I also started working that just naturally into my fiction. And so my fiction got a lot stronger as well. So it's been really cool to see how the two are in conversation with one another.
When you write for the screen and you bring it to your directorial piece, like, when it comes to principal photography, let's say, and, you have, these words that you wrote and you're about to direct those words on screen with these actors. Do you ever have a scene where you're like, oh my gosh, look great on paper, but it's not working? Yeah.
All the time.
So talk about that. How do you pivot from that?
That's the importance and pleasure of casting, is casting folks that, really improve what you have on the page and really bring something new to the characters. So often I write things and then we get onto set and maybe the actor comes up with something that's even better, or what I had written just is not working at all and we have to find something else. And then sometimes that happens because of time. So Chaperone, we shot over 14 days. We had 18 locations, which is wild.
Yeah.
And so often we'd show up and we'd have a 5-page scene and we'd have 20 minutes to shoot it, which means it needs to become a half-a-page scene or a 1-page scene. And so we're rewriting on the fly. And in those situations, I would once again rely really heavily on my cast because they're the ones who know the character best at this point. And I'd be like, all right, I think this is what the heart of the scene is, but what do you think?
When you're shooting in Hawaii, I'm not sure what the if it's the kind of climate it is, if it's pretty predictable, because I mean, you have 14 days to shoot this film and, you almost have to rely on Mother Nature to make sure that it allows you to shoot this. I mean, did you do a lot of outdoor shooting and did that get affected by anything? And is Hawaii pretty predictable, I guess, as far as the weather goes?
Hawaii is not predictable. I mean, it's predictable in terms of the temperature. We're pretty much right in the 80s almost all the time, but it's not predictable in its precipitation, and especially not where I live in Hilo, where Chaperone is set, where most of my films are set, because it rains as much as Seattle. So when you watch Chaperone and you look at the wardrobe, you'll be like, why is she wearing a beanie? Why is she wearing a jacket? And it's because often, we adjust to the temperatures here and then we get chilly, right? It's 70 degrees and raining and we're cold.
Is it like a rainforest type of situation?
Yep.
That's why it's so green and beautiful, right?
Very jungly, very lush. Yeah, but funny enough, we did actually have a drought while we were shooting, which was not great for our plant life, but made it a lot easier for production.
Yeah. Wow. Now, you said your husband Phillips is also a director, and when do you ever have when you work together? Is there ever creative differences that you have to work through?
Absolutely. I mean, I learned filmmaking through him when we met. We met in high school, actually. When we started dating, I was writing fiction and he was a filmmaker and needed a script so that he could direct it. And I was like, I could figure that out. I can write a script. And so that was our first collaboration point. We did story together and then I wrote it and he directed it. And then we did another one that we again did story together and I co-directed with him. That's Stoke. I was also producing these out of necessity. Like when you're starting out, most of us can't find a producer. I live in rural Hawaii and I wasn't very connected with the film community here yet. So I started producing our own work just so we could get it made. But over this time, where I'm learning how to direct, I'm learning about filmmaking, I'm learning what voice and vision even means. Like at first I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't understand. And as I kind of came into my own, we both realized how different our visions and voices are. And the films that we were making, we were trying to do like a Coen Brothers thing, but our styles are so different that it actually was sort of hindering both of us. And we were making these projects that were compromises for both of us and didn't really feel fully like our own. So we actually creatively uncoupled after Stoke. We call it that. Like we're still very married, but we don't work together anymore. I mean, we support each other.
Of course. Yeah.
We have really beautiful complementary skill sets, but we don't co-direct or co-write anymore.
Yeah. And when you walk into this is something that just came to my mind because I've always wanted to ask this. When you go into like a film festival screening, let's say, and it's something that you put your heart and soul into this project and you walk into this huge screen, and you're watching the work that you wrote and directed and produced, and you see it on the big screen with an audience and see their reactions. I mean, what kind of situation? How does that affect you? I mean, is that something that's just an amazing experience for you?
I love the Q&A after the screenings. I love to hear the questions that the audience comes up with. I love to hear the different things they're all responding to. And I especially love, Chaperone, we've played, I think, at 18 different film festivals, but we just did our Hawaii premiere in Honolulu. And I especially love hearing what my audience here at home thinks of it because, like you mentioned, Hawaii is often a backdrop for film here, but so rarely do we get to have films that are made by the people who live here. And I've only lived here full time about 12 years, but my family's been here for a lot longer. And so, I love this place and I love to make sure that the people that live here are actually seeing themselves on screen, which isn't something that we've always had historically.
In Hawaii, it's off the mainland for, I don't know how many hours a flight it is, 6 hours or something like that, 5-6 hours, right, from LA, if I'm right there. But yep. Yeah, so I know there's a big community of filmmakers in Hawaii. Is that something that you could basically stay in Hawaii, or do you think eventually a move to LA or something like that would be necessary and for the career? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this has been another gift of COVID where, the film industry has changed so much even since I've been living here. At first, most of the folks that, came up here, went to film school here. We actually have a really great university here for film. But after that, people will graduate. And like you said, they're like, well, if I want to work in the industry, then I need to move to LA. I need to move to New York. We have one TV show pretty much always shooting here, whether, it used to be Hawaii Five-0 and then it was Magnum PI. But outside of that and the occasional indie coming through, there wasn't much industry here, but slowly over the last 10 years, that's been changing, especially as, Hawaiian storytellers have kind of been planting themselves more firmly in this space and making sure that they're telling stories not only of the people that live here, but the people that are actually from here. And with COVID and everyone being able to take meetings via Zoom, we've actually had a lot of our most talented filmmakers be able to move home. And so they're moving home. They're, still making films. They're still able to do their meetings. They're all having kids here now. So it's been really nice to sort of see the community go out and then the community come home.
That's amazing. It really is. And, and I want to talk about the circus, the Ariel Circus that you co-founded and creative director for is called Ariel Arts Hawai'i. And, I want to know about that because it's, as a creative, you do several different things and wear different hats. And I'm interested to find out how that started. And was that something that you were always, that you did when you were younger, that type of thing? Is that how it started?
Not at all. So when I moved to Hawaii in 2012, I moved into the middle of nowhere in the jungle, but right next to where I lived was a circus school. And there were a bunch of kids learning, but also adults who were, professional or semi-professional artists that live here now and were training circus, but had nowhere to perform. And so as a producer, I kind of put my producer hat on and I was starting to learn myself. I'm still just a hobbyist, but I was starting to learn circus myself, but I put my hat on and I was like, these are such talented performers. It takes 20 hours a week just to keep your body in shape to do circus. So they're training, the same as a part-time job and they have nowhere to showcase their skills. So I started producing shows for them. And then from there, my business partner and I, who I met doing aerial classes, opened up a studio in downtown Hilo, which again happened during the pandemic. It was another unexpected fruit of COVID. So now we've been open about 3 years and we have about 80 students in and out, and we do anywhere from 3 to 6 big productions a year.
So the productions, are these like corporate events? What kind of productions do you do? Typically, we do a lot of corporate events, but the productions that I'm talking about are stage shows. So we do it at the Palace Theater where Chaperone was shot. I have a strong relationship with that theater, and we do some out of our studio space as well. And it's just so nice for me to writing and even filmmaking can just feel so much like screaming into a void. You spend years on something that you're so kind. You just ordered my book. It's going to take you maybe 5 hours to read it, and then it's done, right? And so it's so nice to have something that keeps me directly tied into my community. Yeah, for sure. I get that. One thing I want to ask you is advice. What kind of advice do you have for maybe a new artist that's just getting started and wants to get into the industry but knows nothing about it? So what kind of advice can you give somebody brand new?
Yeah, for film, I still feel brand new, which is so funny. Even though I've been doing it 10 years, I still feel brand new. But my advice for film is to work with your friends to make as many films as you can quickly and for as cheaply as possible, and not to be precious. as you cultivate your own voice and who you like working with.
Yeah, that's great advice. And what kind of legacy do you want to leave, Zoe, when it's all said and done? What kind of legacy do you want to leave for, people that are fans of you?
Oh man, that's a huge question. When I look at threads in my work, I'm mostly looking for folks from Hawaii and for women and for queer people to see themselves seen on screen. I didn't always see myself on screen growing up, and I know so many people here, feel that way even more so. And so I just want people to feel their stories are reflected back at them.
Awesome. I love that. So Chaperone, film that just came out 2024. How can our listeners find that film, first of all, and how can they, and is there a link somewhere, or is it on streaming platforms?
Yeah, Chaperone hasn't been released yet, so we're still doing festivals. So keep an eye out for it at a festival near you. We just did Portland. We're going to go to, I think, Canada in a little bit. So keep your eye on the festival circuit, and then we should be out in theaters and online next year.
Awesome. All right. And then we'll put that on our social media too when it comes out, so our listeners will know. And then also Significant Others, the novel that you wrote, I ordered it myself. So I implore our listeners to get that as well. I went on Amazon and got it, and it should be here in 2 days. So again, order that book. It's got very high reviews. So excited about that. Harper Collins Mira. So, good luck with that again. And can't wait to have you back at some point. But thank you for joining us, Zoe, and much success to you in your future.
Thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate it.